Now, I really didn't want to turn this into a web development tutorial, but I've realized that sooner or later I'm gonna run into things that I'm gonna need. So maybe it's best to implement some web development stuff now so there is less headache going forward. And what I'm gonna do in this video, I'm just gonna implement a UI framework, Materialize. And for those who are familiar with web development, it's kind of like Bootstrap. I could have used Bootstrap, but I'm gonna use this just because it's more fun. So basically this will give us some pre-styled things, so things like form elements and stuff like that. So if I go under forms here, I look at, for example, text inputs. See, these are pretty nicely styled inputs, so it doesn't look that ugly. So that's kind of what I'm going to do. So I'm going to implement this to make these things look decent. So to start, I'm going to go to materializecss.com. First, we need to implement the basics. So we're going to go under Get Started. It's going to bring us here. I'm going to scroll down. I'm just going to use CDN to implement this. That's going to make my life easier and for everybody else. Otherwise, this is going to get, again, too complicated. So what I need to do, I need to include the CSS in my project. I'm going to copy that line right from there, go to my app, and this should be in my head section. So I'm going to go here and paste that right there. That's good. I'm going to go back here. There is this JavaScript. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to implement that right here, right above the rest of our JavaScript that goes in there. Save. And then we'll scroll down a little bit. We may need a couple of other things. So here I already did this, but I did it with that CSS link, so we don't need that. So we will probably at some point need this icons. So let's do that. So I'm going to copy that icon style and go back here, and we're going to implement that right above this. So this is basically copy paste job so far. Anybody should be able to do that. Go back here, and there's this meta tag we need for responsive pages. So copy that, go back here, and this is gonna go in here someplace. Save it, and I think that should do it. Yeah, so that's the overall implementation of this. So I just added this links to this CDNs for all of this stuff we need to be included. The script goes in the bottom. Style sheets go on top in our head section. Let me open the app thing. So now you can see how things are starting to look different already. We have this different looking input boxes. So now we can start building the rest of this. So first of all, I don't need this hello. I'm going to get rid of that. So luckily we didn't do all that much in HTML. Mostly it's just two input boxes and there is this select, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go here on the left. So under forms, I'll scroll down until I go to text inputs to style my text inputs. If I scroll down a little bit, here we go. So we have this piece of code that's already showing us some examples of how we can do different things with this different text inputs, right? And all the stuff. Now for me, I just need this stuff on top. I'm just gonna grab, see, this is that input box with all the styling with the div and everything that goes around that. And there's the second, that's the last name. See, we have first name and last name kind of side by side here, and they're in the row. So I'm gonna just copy this from here through here. So see, starting from this row until the end, not including this next row. I'm gonna copy that, go back to my app, and I'm just gonna just push this down a little bit so it doesn't get on the way, and paste that code. I'm gonna save that. Let's just take a look and see what this looks like. So if I refresh, see, we have this first name thing and the last name thing. So there's this kind of cool effects that come with this stuff. So here we have this div box. So basically this is a row class that creates a new row. And in here we see have two divs. This is the first column. This is the second column in this row. And then we give the size of the column here. So the total length of the size is 12. So if we want half and half, that's 6 and 6. So we go here, S6, that's the first one, and S6 is the second one. So there are two columns, both size 6, so that should be half and half, which is what we get right now. Now if we go back here and do something like 4 and 8, so this should total to 12 usually, right? So if I do this, see, now there is this 4 and 8, 1/3, and then we have 2/3. I'm fine with 6 and 6, half and half. I'm gonna just create another div on top here. This div is gonna have container class, and then I'm gonna close that after this whole thing is over here. Now I'm gonna try to tab this in, so I'm gonna select this, hit tab, and see, that doesn't work. Awesome. So we have to do a lot of space work, I guess, here. So I'm just gonna leave it like this. That's fine. This should be usually indented for good practice, but it doesn't work well. So we'll just keep it the way it is. So if I hit refresh, see that container kind of pushes this in a little bit, so it doesn't go all the way from left to right. It's a little better organized now. So this thing says placeholder. I don't really want that. So we're gonna just do the same as this one. That's just last name. So I'm just gonna remove this placeholder out of that. And I'm gonna save that. So if I refresh, now we should have first name, last name, and our user is gonna know what to enter. Now this is our input boxes. Remember, I used to do the other two input boxes the way I did before, but now I'm just gonna use these two input boxes instead because they're just styled better. So to make that happen, all I have to do, see, I have this ID for my input box. I just have to match with whatever IDs we had for our input boxes before. Now my ID for the first name input box was FN, if you remember. So I'm just gonna go here, FN, and this label is for this input, so we need to match that ID for that too. And then the same way we need to do for last name. So I'm gonna go LN, copy that, go back here, and ID LN for LN. Save it. So that should be that. Refresh. So that should be first and last name. So at this point, because I made an alternative input box for these two, I don't need these anymore because now we have this framework stuff. Now, if I refresh this, that stuff should be gone. Now the next thing should be that drop down thingy. Remember with that application over here. So let's try to do this drop down. So to do that, I'm gonna go documentation for the website, and under forms, we're gonna scroll down until we find select. So this is our select box. I'm just gonna choose that for our drop down, and I'm gonna scroll down and find whatever they gave me for this. That's the code for it. That's the first one. See, then it's the second one. Basically, this is the example of what we should expect. And this is the HTML we need for it. So I'm just going to grab the first one. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to my own thing. And then right below these two columns, now we need probably another row for this to send it right below these two on the next line. So that means we're going to need another div with a class. I'm just going to copy and paste actually. I'm going to copy this. And we're going to paste this ending for this div. Now this div belongs to this container. Now, as we start writing more HTML, this is going to get confusing. So I'm going to write a comment for HTML to know what this div is for. So I'm going to do an HTML comment, which is this weird thing in HTML you have to do. And we'll say close container. We should usually do like closing comments for these divs as well to see what's happening, right? So why not do that? So I'm going to do this, close row. And this one also is going to close the row. So some comments don't really do anything, just for us to know what's going on here. Now, inside of this row, I'm going to need some of that stuff, which is here. So this, see, it says S12, which goes through the whole thing. It's a column that goes through the whole row. So I'm going to copy that. We'll probably not do the whole row, but we'll see. So I'm going to go back, and inside of that row, I'm going to paste that column. Oh boy, does this look ugly in this editor. So I'm just going to space this in to make it half decent. Somebody mentioned in comments that tab works. You can see it definitely doesn't work here. So I tried it. So I'm going to save this. Let's just see what this looks like before anything else. So I'm going to go here, refresh. So there's this materialize selecting. So drop downs, they have to be initialized for them to work. So if I scroll down, I'm hopefully going to find that. See, they have to be initialized with JavaScript. So I'm not using jQuery, so I'm just using this. So I'm going to copy that. And this is JavaScript, so it needs to go in our JavaScript. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go page.js, and we'll just put it, I'm just going to put it on top here in our script. Tab definitely doesn't work. So save. So this options for now, I'm just going to get rid of it. We don't have any options. So let's take a look. Now we have it initialized. So now we should have a drop down. See, and this is our old drop down. So we'll go back here and do this. So we don't really need all this value stuff. So this also not necessary. So for us, if you just look here, see, this is that select box with 3 options. So if we look at our, so we have this select box with 4 options, but it looks identical. So I'm just going to copy what we had and just replace these options. I'm just going to keep this thing on top that says choose your option and just paste the rest in here. And I'm going to say choose your app. For our select, remember we had an ID. So if I scroll down, we did this ID app for our select. So now we need to do it for this select box here. Here we go. That's our ID. So I'm going to save this. This select goes through the whole thing. I don't want to keep it that long. I'm just going to cut it down to half. So we'll just do 6 instead of 12. And now if I refresh, it should be here. And later on, maybe we'll add something to this side. And this should probably be our own text. That is where we're going to put our application thing. So I'm going to scroll down, see this label, application. And that means we also now don't need this whole thing because we just made a new one, which is much better. Here we go. Finally, we need to do this run it thing, which should be our button. So let's go check out what type of buttons we have available here. So I'm just going to go under probably components, see buttons. So here we don't need all of these A tags, that those are links. And I assume we should be able to add that same like class to our button element, and it should work without using a link element or anything. But let's just pick something from here and test it out, right? So for example, let's look at maybe this one. That icon is on the left. Look at me now. I'm thinking about which one looks better. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to go to our own thing. That button is going to go below this row. And it needs to be in its own row. So that means we need to create a row for this. And that's going to go here. And we're going to close that row by closing that. And indent this a little bit. So that's a hyperlink right now. I don't want to use a hyperlink. So I'm going to start testing this as a button instead. Do we really have to have the stuff? And see if it's able to just style buttons the same way, right? So I'm going to change it to button element. Save it. I'll go back and refresh this thing. Here we go. Now we have a button. It has this cool effect and this icon, which we should be able to change. Now we want this thing to say send or run it or submit, whatever the text is going to be. So I'm going to go back here and grab our text. And we're going to put it in this button, which is going to go right here. See, we don't want to do this I tag. This I thing is what gives us this icon. Now we want the text to change, which is this text that says button. So I'm going to replace it with our own text. Now this button has to have the ID. We had it because we use that ID later on with our JavaScript. There's our ID. And now that should be our button. I don't need this anymore. This button is gonna have this icon. Let's see what's a better icon to choose for this instead of doing this crazy icon. So I'm gonna go here and find icons under components. I included this already on top of my project, just to refresh your memory. I did that right here. So I don't really need to redo that. Here, see, it gives us some icon. It shows us what we can do with sizing and stuff. But now it gives us different icons that are available. Let's see. So what we want to do, maybe we'll do this plus in the button. Go back. And now what I'm going to do, instead of saying cloud, it's going to be that thing. So this is automatically just going to replace this text with the icon. So if I refresh, see, there's this plus now. Run it. I don't know if it should be the plus, but you get the idea. So you can just choose any icon you like from here, and whatever looks good for you should be fine. And you could also just remove that icon if you don't want the icon at all. Maybe I'll do this. So that's going to be this thing. Refresh. That's our button. Now I'm going to also change the color for that button. So with Materialize, changing colors is super easy for stuff. And all I really have to do is go here and under getting started, CSS, there it is, color. So now if I scroll down, There is our color grid. So we're gonna just select some color for this. I'm just gonna choose this that says blue darken 3. So all I have to do is just copy that part. I don't need the actual code, or maybe I'll just go with the purple thing. That's fine. I'm gonna copy this, or that's not purple, is it? Anyways, so go back here and change this. All I have to do is just add the class to this button to make it that color. Now go back here, refresh. There it is. Now we have this cool button with this new look for our application. Now our application should still work the same way. Now, first of all, let me just fill something out and try to send it, and then we'll go check if everything works. Linda Brown, and we'll choose an application, hit run. See, something didn't work here as it used to. We used to be able to clear this, but now it doesn't work because now we're using this other thing. So we're gonna have to figure out how do we clear the box. But for right now, I just want to open my Google Sheet to make sure this actually worked. Here you go. I opened it. All fine. We see how we got all the information entered. So that's cool. So now we have a whole new UI implemented, and we can just choose this and run it. Now, what I want to do, I just want to see how I'm gonna change this back to the original after it's sent. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just go here, and basically when somebody submits it, we'll try to get this back to this first option. So we'll try to select the first option from this app. To do that, I'm gonna go back to my JavaScript. And if you remember, the way I was doing that, I was just trying to set the value to blank. So I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna still get the app ID, and the app ID would be, remember that same select box, this, and this should have this thing called selected index, and we should just set it to 0, and 0, like in JavaScript arrays, would be the first one. So I want to go back and remember pick the first option from the list, which is this one. But because we're in Materialize, we need to also refresh the whole Materialize thing so it resets this, because it does a lot of JavaScript stuff to actually make this look the way it looks. So to reset that, we have to basically just initialize this thing all over again, this element. See how we initialized all the select elements here? Now we just copied and pasted it, but this line is what initializes it. I don't really need the instance, so I'm just gonna copy that, and I'm gonna go below, and we need to initialize the element, and the element is this. Now, to not repeat myself for this reason, I'm going to just, it's kind of too late, isn't it? I already have it repeated, but that's fine. I'll just do it here. So I'll just do var my app equals to, and I'll just grab this to a variable, that element. Then we'll take that my app and set the selected index to 0, and then we'll pass that to this initialize function again to reload the form. So we're gonna save this. Let's see, hopefully this works. So I'm gonna go back and refresh this thing. Elizabeth, last name, and we'll choose numbers, click run. Awesome. So that resets. Good. So now let's just check and make sure it works. Yep. Nice. So here we go. Now we were able to implement initialize on our script on our web page, whatever this is, and now it should look decent, and we should be able to use some of the features it has in our advantage going forward. And that should be enough for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.